There you go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you to the economists for inviting us to this impressive event. It's a pleasure to be back here in Bulgaria. I want to start, like everyone, congratulating the country for this, amazing step forward in their journey of European integration. Euro adoption is really a milestone, like Governor has recently said, and it's just an extra step, after 20 years since joining the European Union. I want to focus on different areas. I'm going to talk about structural reforms also because I am just before the business panel. Basically, my first message tonight is, this is a good moment to move forward and to realize what has happened in the last 20 years. Since Bulgaria joined the European Union, convergence in terms of per capita GDP has increased by 1/3. And this is an amazing achievement. It's a good achievement. It has improved the standards of living of Bulgarians, but it's just part of the journey. It's not enough. And it is the moment now to try and focus and see, okay, how are we going to go from 1/3 in terms of per capita, 2/3 we did, and then to complete convergence with the EU average. How are we going to do that? We've been thinking about this together with the country, and in our latest staff report, country report, we've put forward a set of proposals. First, we say, you have to start by addressing short-term challenges. We focus, a number of recommendations on the role of fiscal policy to stabilize and to make sure that the economy remains resilient, remains stable. But also, we mentioned the need to watch out for credit risk and possible financial sector risks. That's in the short term. In the medium term, what is it that we want to focus? And we think, it would be very good that Bulgaria and other countries with similar challenges focus in the region. Well, basically in addressing the challenges that affect the businesses. So the business community, and we'll hear from them in a panel, is always discussing and planning and looking at how the different factors of productions affect them. And here there are two major challenges: labor markets and business and attraction of investment. We heard from Joanne earlier at the beginning of the session. So here, let me just share with you a few facts. In terms of demographic decline, which was mentioned, the working age population is expected to decline by as much as 20% in the next 25 years. And this is among the fastest declines globally in terms of demographic decline. Also, labor productivity per person in Bulgaria is barely half of the EU average. And there are also large digital skill gaps. It is true, as the president said, that there are good, lately there are good signs. We see companies really at the forefront, at the frontier, but there is a lot of catching up also in terms of the labor force, in terms of digital skills. And this is an important aspect that affects companies, and we'll hear from different sectors as well. In terms of investment as a share of GDP, this gradually declined from the beginning, from 30 years ago to now, is below. It's almost 3 percentage points below the EU average. And also importantly, when we're talking about innovation, about the new growth model, investment in R&D is among the lowest in Europe. Only at 1/3. And this is something that the country, companies, private investment and public investment, they need to be part of the model for the future. How to offset all this? Well, it is good. We heard about the need to have forward-looking long-term plans. Both publicly and private companies should be focusing on that, but it's fundamental that structural reforms happen and happen soon. I think the country, everybody's mentioning that, but the country needs to address these gaps. Investment in human capital is very important in the country to increase educational attainment and also to have the capacity to innovate at the level and the speed that the country needs. And also, governance has been mentioned by Governor Radev. Governance, rule of law, transparency of public administration, regulatory barriers. I mean, all this needs to be, brought to the next level. We know that structural reforms are difficult. There are difficulties in every country, but it is encouraging to hear, the Central Bank of Governor of Greece, countries that only 10, 15 years ago were in everybody's, including the economists, dedicating numbers to countries that, they need to do reforms. In the end, when those reforms happen, there are results and the populations perceive that, and then there's, the belief that change can happen. we just estimated based on different experiences what would be the bang for the buck, the result of closing structural gaps in Bulgaria. And the IMF in this recent report estimated that this could have an effect over the medium term of 6 percentage points of additional GDP over the medium term for Bulgaria, just closing those structural gaps by addressing, changes in governance, in innovation, in public administration, investment in human capital. So this can be done, should be done, and we encourage, we've been encouraging the previous government, will encourage and will engage in a debate and dialogue with the forthcoming government to try and help this move forward. And today is an important day. This has been discussed, single market. The leaders of the European Union are meeting in Belgium, close to Maastricht, to discuss single European market and competitiveness. Again, Draghi and Letta are there today, together with the rest of prime ministers. This is this discussion, informal retreat to talk about the single European market. There's lots of skepticism around. We hear that everywhere, but also lots of hope. And my second message today is that, to complete the convergence and the moment in which the country, Bulgaria, is thinking about doing those reforms, the moment is now. Because if things happen in Europe and if they happen in Bulgaria at the same time, there are multiplier effects that can benefit the country a lot. This is why we at the fund has been, focusing and engaging with Bulgaria and other countries in the region to try and see where there are synergies between domestic reforms at the country level and European reforms. And I want to focus on 4 areas that they are very important for us. First, regulatory barriers, and also the possibility that companies opt into what is known as the 28th regime. We at the IMF considered and we're supportive of the European Commission's proposal to quickly move into, creating a 28th regime, as this will definitely help European companies grow and become larger in the single European market. Also, if Europe wants to thrive, it really has to be a mobile workforce. It needs to be possible that doctors, engineers, architects work in different countries, both from Bulgaria in other countries and also from other countries in Bulgaria. Look, we've heard several times when we've come to the country, well, there is brain drain. There's our people, our best people are going to Europe, and that is affecting our capacity to grow. Well, the same can happen at some other point in time. People can come back. We saw that. Joan provided some useful data on that front. Skilled people can come back, and I think it's important to make that possible. Finally, moving into energy. It's been some time since, the discourse about energy is going to be a little bit on energy security and climate transition a bit down. But for this region, this is still probably the best bet. Energy transition, renewables, interconnection, making the cost of electricity cheaper for businesses is fundamental to gain competitiveness and go back into a model that is forward-looking and is more productive. And finally, I'm not going to talk a lot about savings and investment union because my predecessors already did, but completing the capital markets union and the banking union is critical. This is going to be it's the only way to make capital accessible and the amount of capital accessible that European companies, including Bulgarian companies, need. So my last message tonight is, Bulgaria is really looking at completing the convergence journey. This should be the next goal. Euro membership was a goal until very recently, and it has just happened. The president mentioned membership to the OECD, maybe next year. Next one should be about standards of living, completing this last third of convergence. And for that, Bulgaria has the opportunity to become a champion for Europe now. To avoid this two-speed Europe that the president was mentioning, it's easier if Bulgaria takes the voice and becomes pro-European and use the leadership and the newly gained voice as a Euro member to advocate for the completion of the single market. This would be good for Bulgaria, good for its citizens, and also good for Europe. Thank you.